You are now listening to the Business Chatter Podcast.
All right. We're live. Well, we're not live, but welcome to the Business Chatter Podcast. I'm Anthony.
I'm Chris, and we're happy that you're here with us today. We are going to be talking about entrepreneurship specifically today, startups to enterprise, value creation, team building, product management, and everything in between.
You kind of stuttered there.
Well,
You're like,
I was like, do we want to do the full intro, or do we want to just stick like today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship?
there's absolutely nothing wrong with stuttering, but Chris, be confident.
I mean,
Be confident.
all right, let's try it again. Today, no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. So we talked to Parker Olson at Forij. Super memorable, super unique. He's incredibly enthusiastic. He has some great stories.
And he's a really cool guy. His story is very interesting. He really puts himself out there, and he is epitomizing what being an entrepreneur is in the world today.
And Chris shamelessly asked him for an Instagram plug.
I did. You'll see it. You'll see
He
it.
was like, and you'll share it on your Instagram.
Hey, we've been learning, and we'll share more details on this in the future. You have to shoot your shot, and we're talking about it in this episode as well. So real quick before we jump in, it's Forij, Forij. Forij.co is the website. We'll talk about it in the podcast as well, but really great functional mushroom granola that tastes very good. It's eaten quite a bit in my household. As you can see, we got the 3-pack, and we'll be ordering more.
That's right. Let's jump in.
Parker, thank you so much for joining us today.
Fellas, how are we?
Doing well.
Great.
Doing really well. Thank you so much. So we have Parker here from Forij. Before we start, Parker, give us a little intro. Who are you? Where can our listeners find you? And then we can dig in.
Man, so much pressure on the spot right away. My name's Parker. I'm the founder of a company called Forij. It's Forij. And we make functional foods. Our tagline right now that we're messing around with is nutrition for your noggin. So we make whole food, ingredient-based packaged food. So we have a loose bag of granola. We're actually launching a meal replacement bar here next week. And then we include a proprietary blend of mushrooms that really support cognitive health, help your neurons grow, help you focus better. Also kind of have some preventative qualities for like neurodegenerative diseases. We're just trying to get healthy mushrooms that can help you think more clearly into your diet in an easy packaged way.
Awesome. So I know you're an Ironman.
I am indeed.
Did this have anything to do with improving your training, improving your performance?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I was backtrack back to 2018. I moved to Seattle and like reinvented myself in a lot of ways. I didn't know anyone out there, and a couple of the things that I did I wanted to get into weird Seattle stuff. That was the only thing I knew about Seattle, and one of those things was I went to like an apothecary, which I didn't even know were still around. I straight up thought that was like a witchcraft thing.
Sure.
It's not. They're real. People still go. And I learned about these like mushrooms that were being used medicinally, or like coffee alternatives, or you can drink them as tea and they have medicinal value. And I kind of thought it was a sham. And I drank a tea at this apothecary, and I like saw these really cool noticeable effects. I like felt really calm, had this like really calm energy, like felt just really dialed. Like it almost felt like I had taken like a muscle relaxant. And right around that time, I was looking to make friends and kind of was in a yes man mode. And I met some guys through a colleague at work, and we like spent a weekend on the beach. We were camping, and a couple of them were like, yeah, like we're going to do a half Ironman. Like you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like I'm in. And so we signed up for the half Ironman, and I was like, oh my God, like in way over my head. And then that got canceled with COVID. So then we deferred to do the full Ironman.
So you got yourself on the hook for something else.
And so when I started training, I also was going through this, in 2018, I went through this phase where every single month for 30 days, I would try a different like diet or nutritional regimen, and was like really trying to dial in like whatever I'm eating, like how does it make me feel, and what should I just be eating? Like what should my standard diet be? And so part of that outcome was I really dialed in on like, I need to eat whole foods, nothing processed. and then these functional mushrooms. So I did a month where I was supplementing with these mushrooms, and it was the best month of how I felt out of all 18 months, which was
Wow.
super cool. So I kind of became like perplexed by these mushrooms and whole food eating, and I kind of started making my own creations. And for me as well, it was like when I was training and like training 6 days a week, 3 of those days were 2-a-days. I just like needed to be fueling quite literally, like really cleanly. So that was, it was all sort of happening around the same time.
Wow. That's great. I mean, it's really inspiring to, first put yourself out there, right? And try to, reinvent yourself, like you said, and just jump in and try new things. But then also when you see a path opening up, to really double down and understand that there's value in the experimentation as well as pushing towards that goal. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And yeah, like I've seen the teas and the coffee replacement and all of that. Like, I'm not a caffeine guy. I don't drink coffee or anything. So, when I saw that you can get functional mushrooms in granola, I was like, there it is. Because myself, I want to try to get more on that healthier path and understand
Cool.
how to better fuel my body. So that was something that really called to me specifically. And, from my perspective, the results have been great. I feel good. I feel the
Cool.
energy, and I enjoy the marketing. I love the slogan that you're
Cool.
that you're working on now. So all of those
Thanks,
things
man.
are really awesome stuff that you're doing, and it's going to help other people. So I think that's really the most
That's the
important thing.
hope. And I tell everyone, it's like you should just go experiment for yourself. Like go and try 30 days of a totally different eating habit and just like see how it affects you. It's powerful to go through it yourself, I think.
Absolutely, that's great
Yeah.
advice. So, you know, we were able to check out your LinkedIn profile and all those things, but when you were doing this experimentation, was your thought after this Ironman, I'm going to do something for myself, or was it, I'm starting to get good at this, I'm really understanding it, I think I'm going to try my hand at building something myself?
Right. And
Entrepreneurship.
sorry,
Go
just to
ahead.
interject, your background is very traditional in terms of you went to a large university, you came out, you worked in strategy at Grant Thornton. It's very off the beaten path to move to Seattle and start your own whole food living lifestyle company. Like, it's
Yeah.
very different. I'm sure a lot of people that have worked where you worked and came from where you came from are very afraid to do something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely opposites in a lot of ways, and it's good. It's funny call out. And going back to college, I originally was pre-med in neuroscience, and then I caved and went to the business school and majored in finance. But I still actually like technically triple majored, although the entrepreneurship major was a joke, transparently. But I still majored in neuroscience and still like had a lot of passion there. And so when I started supplementing with these mushrooms and seeing the effects, I like dove really heavy into the research, and it sort of just like reignited that interest and intrigue in science and some of those things. And for me, it was like I just kept pulling on the string. Like I worked at Grant Thornton for an entire year. I hope the HR manager is not listening to this, although I think he kind of knew. While I was building Forij, while I was training for this Ironman, all at the same time, and it was a long year. And then I've continued to do some side work to like cash flow my lifestyle. I don't exactly have a CEO salary at Forij, so
Sure. No, that's great though. I mean, that also speaks to, the mindset that's needed of being able to, to differentiate getting the work done, the passion, the projects, and then, having that come together, and also knowing when to jump. Like, when was the time where you said, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually going to go 2 feet in and
yeah.
make Forge what it's becoming."
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think you gotta, if you find strings that seem like you can pull them, just keep pulling them. And what I hear a lot is like sometimes younger entrepreneurs will approach me and say, "Hey, I've got this great idea. I'm gonna quit my job. I know I won't be making money for a while, but then I'll be fine." And you're like, I appreciate the attitude, but don't
Mhm.
quit your job. Like literally, I know this sounds horrible, but like you don't owe anything to your job besides your job duty, your job description, and so if you're able to get your work done, like go and build whatever you're interested in, go and start building that business. I'm a big believer being a rule bender, one may say, maybe breaker, TBD. And so it's, if you have that passion, follow it, and I think when it feels right, it will feel right. But I think a lot of people just think that like you start making money right away and you're able to support yourself right away, and that's definitely not the case in a lot of people's matters. And it's nice to operate from a place where you don't you're not clawing and you have $0. I think some may disagree with me in that realm, but that's okay, and that's kind of how I feel.
Was there ever a point where you started this and you said, "Oh my God, we're not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to do this. This is too difficult." Or did
All the
you?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. You still get that. I think earlier last year I kind of went through this like ego death which was powerful for me, where it was like, okay, if everything fails, that's okay. Like I like no longer indexed my personal success or like everything on like the quote unquote success of the business. And I think relieving myself out of operating from a place from fear was really powerful to like free my mind share. Like what a lot of people don't talk about is like, sure, like I have all this time to be working on things, but like the ability to not feel the anxiety and being overwhelmed is challenging some days, and like figuring out how to like really keep like your mentality in check is something all entrepreneurs struggle with all the time. And it's really challenging, I think, for a while. And that, to me, like that's my biggest takeaway is like I feel like I've gotten to the point where like I no longer operate out of fear, and I know how to like if I'm feeling really anxious about something or overwhelmed, like I know how to like de-escalate the situation and then continue to move forward. And there is a part of it where like you have to have blind faith
Hmm.
in some ways. Like there have been days where I'm looking at like the state of the business and just everything, and you're like, there's just no way we're gonna make it through the end of the year. There just isn't. Like you look at it and you're like, it doesn't make any sense on paper. Like it's not gonna happen. And with that logical understanding, you still have to continue to move down the path. And then it's crazy. Like 4 days later, I'll be like, oh my God, like it's gonna happen. You know?
Yeah, it's happening now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's crazy.
well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's such valuable insight to be able to have that awareness, but also, share the element that, one, other entrepreneurs who may be listening to this are not alone, and that those are the
Oh my
range of
God.
emotions that you're going through all the time. And we chatted about it a little bit before we started recording, but I see from following you on LinkedIn that you have a strong network, you communicate with other entrepreneurs, you put yourself out there to also support them. Have you found that building that engaging network has been beneficial to you in addition to having these insights?
Yeah, insurmountable. So I was at this trade show earlier, and another founder came up, and I was at my booth, and we just started chatting, and he's like, I know you from LinkedIn, which is funny. I get that sometimes, and I like kind of crumble. I'm like, oh God. Like I just like I embarrass myself on LinkedIn all the time because I'm like, I don't care. These people aren't real. And then people are like, I'm real. And
Yep.
you're like, and this guy and I just like chopped it up for like 40 minutes. And towards the end, he was like, thanks for the therapy session, man. And I was like, thank you for the therapy session. Like there's something so like relieving to just like talk with someone and be like, oh my God, like this anxiety and these like dark places that like are very lonely on an individual level, like other people are there too. And just to like nobody else can understand it. Like good friends or significant others are like, how are you doing? And I'm never like, oh, I'm bad. Like I'm very rarely, it's very rarely easy for me to be like, oh my God, it was a really tough day because of X, Y, and Z, because it just like there's something that feels like inauthentic about it. And I don't want to like place the burden on them. And then they're gonna start asking all these questions that like I just don't really want to get into, and I don't think they'll understand.
Sure.
But like you just know immediately, like the other founder, it's like immediately like there's so many things that you both are experiencing. And it's really cool to like instantly connect on a lot of those levels. And it really is kind of like a therapy session.
No, absolutely. I mean, that the shared experience from different experiences is so valuable, and definitely being able to highlight that, because there aren't as many people who are walking in your shoes as there are who can deal with the other trials and tribulations of life that are much more pervasive to everyone.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's certainly insightful.
And
Yeah.
I want to hit on the importance of the network that you guys both just talked about, LinkedIn, sending emails, stuff like that. I think people really understate it. It's one of those things, it's a just start, just do it thing. I think LinkedIn is so non-invasive. Email is so non-invasive, but people are so afraid. Oh, I don't want to send this person a LinkedIn request. I don't want to send them a message. I don't know them. I don't have anything in common with them. Like, find something in common with them. Send them an email. Like, if they get mad that you send them an email or don't accept your LinkedIn request, they're probably not a person you really want to be interacting with anyway. There's no harm that comes from it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to see this and grow your network as large as you can. And I'm guilty of it
Yeah.
too. Like, I have a very small LinkedIn network, but it's something that it's just too easy to not do, especially if you're trying to grow your brand. Like, don't be afraid to share your page, your Instagram, because
Yeah.
the worst thing somebody's going to do is just say, I don't care, and not look at it. Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah. I think, we just grow up in a society where like, and I think social media may be a large lever for this, but like there's always just a sense of like judging others, or like you see others and it's a very like, oh, like what are they doing? Like, oh, I think that's dumb, or like whatever. And so I think, like everybody feels this like this need to kind of like represent yourself well, and like you don't want to be looked at as like stupid or dumb. And the reality is like nobody cares about anybody besides themselves, really.
Sure.
Like it's
Yep.
mind-boggling how that's like really genuinely true. And I think that's a really hard fact to like understand. But yeah, I chat with people all the time. We're like, man, I wish I could just post on LinkedIn like you. Like, do you plan out your content for like the next 60 days? And I'm like, no, I literally just post. And then again, I in my mind, I'm just like, at the end of the day, this is really just helping me develop my writing skills. Like that's how I justify a lot of just like whatever I'll put out there. And I'm like, so if it's dumb, it still is like helping me become a better writer. And then
Sure.
also, and I think this is why I like sort of crumble when I meet people in real life, is it's like none of these people are real. Like I literally don't care what any of these people think. But like that type of authenticity, I think people really enjoy. And I've never been posting on LinkedIn has never hurt me, and it's only brought really cool opportunities my way. So there was like a guy reached out and was like, "Hey, I just kind of launched my own eye testing service. So like they test packages against each other. So he's like, can I test your old branding with your new branding?" He's like, usually this is like a $40,000 service that like brands will pay for, and like I'm gonna do it for free for you because like I need some testimonials, and like I think you're dope. And I'm like,
Y-
sweet, let's do it.
That's
And
awesome.
like it's just like really cool data. This Asia distributor that we're starting to work with found me on LinkedIn, and was just like, yeah, I just love how like it's just pretty raw and authentic. Like that's dope, and like we want to work with you guys. There just aren't drawbacks. I'm like, maybe besides it can become a time suck if you like become really engulfed and like
Sure.
fully engaging, and that there's a fine line there.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean the authenticity, that's something that I mean I found you on LinkedIn, right? We were in a shared group is actually where I first saw you, and I was
Right.
like, "Hey, I'm going to follow his journey." And then, things turn into this, and my hope is that someone who hasn't seen you before sees you from chatting with us, and then there's benefit for everybody there because they see that you're an authentic person and you're moving forward trying to make things better.
Yeah,
Um,
and likewise, right? It's like, when we're done filming this, like we'll talk about it on LinkedIn, and then like that's cool, and somebody else will find it, and that's just how things work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, sorry, I just real quick on
Yeah.
the 60-second startup for Morning Brew. I wanted to
Oh
call
yeah.
this out because I was hoping for a little bit more context, but obviously there was not enough time to do it there. When you had mentioned, sorry to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but definitely go check it out. When you mentioned being on a flight and having like the flight attendant allowing you to pitch the product, like how did that come about?
Dude, I like I think something my favorite thing about starting a consumer business is like it justifies me like acting like a fool. I guess there's no other way to put it. Like I like breaking the rules, and I like just like pushing boundaries. And so I'm like, okay, like it helps me justify some actions.
Mhm.
And so one time I was on a plane and I just had drinking coffee and my mind's just going, and I'm like, and I often carry on a whiteboard with me, like very like it's kind of like rare you'll catch me without a whiteboard. I just love the idea of a whiteboard. You can create any messaging on the whiteboard and like create reactions and then like build community. And so I was like, you know what? Like I am gonna run a giveaway on this plane. I don't even care. And so I got out the whiteboard and I literally just wrote on the whiteboard like on like small business founder, like running food giveaway, like want to join question mark. And I just walked to the front of the plane, like, turned around, and I was like super nervous, like I'm fully exposing myself, like there's nowhere you can go and hide.
That's right.
Turned around and I just like held the sign up and literally was like crumbling, like. And it's so funny, it's really interesting too, because the first couple rows are like avoiding eye contact but are kind of curious, and then somebody will just be like, oh, that's cool, like what are you doing? And
Yep.
then you start a conversation and everybody around them realizes they're like, oh man, that is kind of cool, like I guess it wouldn't be that weird to like engage with this person. And then I was collecting seat tags, and then I like did a giveaway, and I don't know if it was that flight or a future one. I think it was the second one I did it on, because I've done it like 10 times, where
Amazing.
I did it, and the first thing I like to do is like become friends with all the flight attendants, stewardesses, and be like, and then just be like, oh yeah, I'm a local founder, like I think I'm gonna do this giveaway thing. I never ask. I always say, I'm like, I think I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
And a lot of them are like, oh, that's so cool. And one of them was like, "Do you want to announce it? And then like we can announce the winner?" And I was like, absolutely. Yes.
Definitely do that. Yeah.
And so we like got on the intercom and it was like, "Hey," like, and just had fun with it. And yeah, people thought it was pretty cool. Some people, clearly weren't interested, but like,
If they weren't interested, they're not,
All it takes is
yeah,
one. It's a domino.
for sure.
yeah. And actually I've run into people, like people have randomly come across my LinkedIn content who I was on the plane with, and people were like, "I was on that plane." Or there was one guy I met at a grocery store like 6 months later in Florida, and this plane was going to Seattle, and I met him in Florida, and he stopped me and he's like, "Dude," he's like, "You're the plane guy." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You're the plane giveaway guy." He's like, "I've told all my friends about you." And like we just ran into each other in at the grocery store. It was wild. Like again, it's sort of this like network effect of like you do things that people remember and people talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's a great story. If that happened to me, I would absolutely tell all my friends, and then running into you would be a great way to close the loop on it. For
Yeah, it
sure.
was awesome. Yeah.
So I think jumping off of that, so we've talked a lot about you, your story, and what you've done, but I feel like we should talk a little bit about Forij more. Obviously, I very much feel the founder is the brand. People want to get to know you, what's behind the brand, what went into it. But what's the future of Forij? Where are you at right now, and where do you see it moving forward?
Man, it's so crazy. So the packages that you guys have, we like just launched this rebrand, and these creatures are like really creating kind of an interesting world. So we're about to launch this like new kind of product add-on or offering where like anybody can build their custom forager. So all of the creatures are real people. And we have like 60 right now. And so anyways, like we're looking at a lot of different ways to like engage with people about like you get to build your own creature, and like how can you continue to engage with people and do cool things with, and the creatures' names are foragers.
Mm-hmm.
Just the other day I got an email from a dad. I posted about this on LinkedIn today. And he was like, "Hey, this is kind of odd, but like my son found your product in Sprouts and like loves the product and literally won't shut up about it, and his birthday's coming up, and like will you do something for his birthday?" So I think, we're gonna fly out, maybe get him like a plush toy. So I feel like there's just a whole world of like branding around these creatures that could be really cool. We're launching these meal replacement bars, so that's like a whole thing in and of itself. We just launched nationally in Sprouts, so that's like pretty cool and new and exciting, and we're gonna be doing a lot with Sprouts. And then this random Asia opportunity. So um, in Asia, I guess, or in China, at liquor stores they sell like Chinese medicine. So like some of the mushrooms that we use, and people like know what they are, but like, like they literally will just sell like the mushrooms or like snake oils. Like it's kind of like a little bit outdated. And so the largest importer of cognac, this is a guy who found me on LinkedIn, is bringing us to market there as this like rice wine snack alternative, because I guess in China like people will get like Chinese medicine cleanses because they booze all the time. So the idea and the angle is to be like, hey, like you can be like kind of daily dosing with Chinese medicine through just these snacks that pair really, really well with rice wine. So like that's a whole interesting opportunity that's going on. I may be flying out to China in like a couple months and just like running around and like being the big like American guy and just like shaking some hands and like probably like getting forced to drink alcohol with these random like retailers. So that's gonna be super interesting. Yeah, and then just on a personal front, just trying to enjoy myself and be happy. I don't know.
Well, I mean, right? If you could be happy, then all the rest of the stuff, makes everything else easier. So
Yeah,
that's,
just trying to have fun. So
for sure.
those are kind of some of the big things going on. So like a lot going on with the brand, the meal replacement bars, national launches at Sprouts, these like Forager World Asia.
That,
That's kind of the business in like 45 seconds.
that's awesome. It's really encouraging to hear that, it goes from one, like one item, right? One, and then you move on and all these opportunities present themselves and you decide this makes sense, this doesn't.
Yeah.
You're making changes within the organization. I mean, it's never exactly what you set it out to be, but having the ability to be able to pivot and understand where opportunities are because you're engaging with the community and you understand the value. I mean, that's where success seems to come from,
I
from
feel
one of
like
those
what you just
facets.
defined is like true entrepreneurship on a level. It's like you just have to like I always talk about it. You're just like kind of a gunslinger. on up to a certain point, but it's like you have to just be like, what are the opportunities? Like, what are those threads that we want to pull? What are the ones that we're not interested? Like, what do we actually have resources and capacity for? And like, you're making those decisions frequently.
Absolutely.
And that's why we're doing a podcast.
I know. There it
Yep.
is. There it
That's
is.
exactly why we're doing
This
this.
is
What number
definitely
guest am I?
you are number 2.
Number 2.
Let's go.
Yes.
Number 2. And we'll be rolling out more guest episodes. We'll have a couple solo episodes as well.
Cool.
But yeah, we'll be communicating this for those listening that hear this. You'll see it. You'll see it on Parker's Instagram and on the Forij Instagram and on the LinkedIn.
Wow,
And
that's a lot of pressure to put on him.
hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully.
What if he doesn't want to put it on his Instagram?
Well, hey, I
What if
mean,
it's terrible?
you could. I
No,
mean,
I
if,
definitely will.
if it's that bad, then
No, this has been
we'll address
fun.
it.
Bit
Now
more unique too.
we really appreciate it. Before we go, one rapid fire question, and then let everyone know where they can find you. What would you say was your biggest lesson that you've learned in the process so far?
Yeah, I think, and this is maybe more specifically of creating like a consumer facing business, but there's like, I think there's 3 keys, 3 like adjectives you need to figure out how to make, how to create for your brand. And it's how do you make a brand that's memorable, unique, and authentic. And so it's, to me, like, is it unique? Like there's so many brands, especially in Western, like in the United States today, like it's every single category is saturated. So it's like, it just has to be unique and memorable. And then the authenticity, I think, is what draws people like really in. Like, people can tell if a brand was launched by some big corporate America, or like there's some real heart and soul there. So I really like, to me, it's like, those are 3 core tenets that I always try and think about whenever we're building anything.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I think I speak for both of us when, you're doing that with Forij and, in speaking with you. So thank you so much for that. Before we wrap, where can all of our listeners find you?
Yeah, we're in stores at Sprouts nationally, on our website, www.forij.co. We don't have the co. I thought was cooler.
Yes.
I think the .com is like $25,000 at this point, because we drive a ton of traffic to our website. Through SEO, we drive like 40,000 people a month to our website, and so it's made the .com more expensive, which I should have seen. But yeah, so Forij.co, Sprouts, and we're at a lot of health natural chains that we have a store locator on our website. Those are kind of the main places. Yeah, and then you keep up with me on LinkedIn or drop me an email. Either way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Parker. We're really grateful for the time that you're sharing with us, and love watching the business continue to grow, and we'll continue to support you as things move forward.
Thanks. Yeah,
awesome
appreciate you,
conversation.
fellas.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Another good one.
Pretty good. By the way, I don't know if any of you are watching. Before we wrap this up, I'm a lot taller than Chris, but I'm slouching. He just looks taller than me on camera. It's been bothering me the last few times we record.
Whoever's watching who doesn't know us, they think I'm taller than you.
Yeah.
So
I'm like, I have a few inches and probably 65 pounds on Chris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Primarily muscle. Don't let him sell it short. He's been working out hard.
Yeah.
So it is muscle. I'm working on the muscle piece, but it's going to take some time to get there.
Peloton's not going to do it for you. I mean, it can. It's supplemental. We love Peloton.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Peloton, but there's also you got to lift heavy weight. That's just what it comes down to.
Kick them up and put them down. Or just keep holding them.
That's true. Well, I was actually just reading something at how farmers walks are not as beneficial for you as you think.
Farmers carries,
like when you're just like carrying weights and kind of walking distance, like it doesn't engage all of the muscles in the way that you think it does. There's more functional exercises to better target whole body, because like people think that when their heart is beating faster and their blood is pumping, that it's doing more than it is. But again, this was one person's opinion. I don't have any studies to back that up. So, we came to that point, so I wanted to address it. But more importantly, Forij, great company, Parker, great founder. He's memorable, he's unique, he's authentic. He touched on it, and it certainly is something that's very important to building a brand, especially when you're building a brand around lifestyle, health, and he's living it and embodying it, but also being able to drive value and taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, very inspiring, and definitely said quite a few things that touched me. So I hope you guys all enjoyed. Little fun fact: he and Chris, different schools, but same fraternity.
That's right.
Not frat. That's very offensive. Chris has informed me I was not in a fraternity, but you don't call it a frat. We didn't talk about this in the podcast. Obviously,
We didn't.
I will bring it up with Parker at some point if I do speak with him again, just to get his opinion on it. Because again, as Chris mentioned with the study on farmers' carries, it's just one person's opinion, no scientific evidence around it. So I feel like I should venture out so we at least have a decent sample size.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm a social scientist by trade.
Thank you for that. Well, yes, and that is actually, that's how I found Parker, was through a fraternity group, like a national fraternity group. He posted about his business. I wanted to follow the journey, and it's actually really cool to see that I've gone from watching from afar to actually being a customer, and now having the opportunity to speak with him, learn from him, and share those insights with our community that we're continuing to work hard to build. So, we really appreciate that you're spending your time with us.
Yes, thank you. So with that, thanks for listening, watching, liking, subscribing, following. Did I say following? Am I supposed to say following? I'm going to add that in.
Say it
following.
Twice. Start with follow, end with follow.
I feel like this is kind of scripted, this like outro, but it never ends up being what the script is actually supposed to be. So you can find us at Business Chatter Pod on Instagram. I think that's the follow.
Yes.
We also have a LinkedIn page.
We do.
Grow our professional network there.
So follow us there.
Yeah, you can email us ideas, suggest guests, give us your feedback. If somebody wants to make us a Google page, I guess we can make our own Google page. You can leave us star reviews.
That's true.
Yeah, you can become a local guide on Google. That's pretty important to a lot of people.
And if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else, ratings do really help. We appreciate it. And
if
your feedback is very valuable.
You would like to advertise our podcast in the front of any airplanes that you are on, we also would not be wholly opposed.
That's right.
Just do it in a safe manner. Don't get yourself kicked off your flight. That wouldn't be good. It wouldn't look great for us. But, if you're really enthusiastic, don't be afraid to share.
And if you do it and you have a video of it, we'll send you a little something.
Yeah.
Not encouraging you to do it, but if you were to do it, then we'll see how it goes.
Host at businesschatterpod.com.
That's right.
That's what I was getting to. That's what that was leading up to.
I was going to say that was a really long walk to a very short.
One small step for man, one giant leap for me.
That was great. I need to put like a graphic of walking on the moon somewhere.
Probably really easy
right
on
here
the
in
knees.
editing. Oh man, yes, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely easier on the knees than walking around on Earth. But until we have the opportunity to go to the moon, we're gonna have to deal with gravity.
Could you imagine first podcast on the moon?
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's very entrepreneurial. If I could have my opinion.
Do you think that that should be a goal of ours, like a long-term goal, is the first podcast on the moon?
I don't think it should even be that long-term of a goal.
Well,
China's going pretty soon, aren't they? Isn't that they have a planned moon mission?
I think they do.
Listen, we give them enough money, they will let us have our first podcast on the moon.
What if we gave them like a file, like a USB with all of our podcasts on it, and they leave it on the moon?
Then we're technically the first podcast on the moon.
Well, yeah, I'm saying. I was actually thinking of like, let's get up there and record up there.
Yeah,
I would love
beat
to
China to have, because we know they're going to have the first podcast on the moon,
which would be our podcast. So it'd be physically there, but then we could also go there and record it.
But we're a pro-American podcast.
100%.
So we want to be the first podcast on the moon through America.
That seems like that would be more of a private mission than a public mission, right? Like the NASA private contract. We're going on a tangent. Okay. If you have any thoughts on us being the first podcast on the moon, please share them with us. If you do email us at host@businesschatterpod.com, we will respond. If you comment on our Instagram at businesschatterpod, we will respond. We really do appreciate your time. We know it's extremely valuable, so thank you for sharing it with us. We're the Business Chatter Podcast. Consider us your crash course on value creation through the eyes of those, well, the words and the eyes of those who have done it before.
Wait, what?
Well, we used to say eyes, but now we say words.
Oh, the words, right. Yeah, stay tuned. We got some good ones coming.
We do. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.